letter in the mail says Dominion's coming through, and they want us to think there's nothing we can do. Hard to believe, but we found out it's true. They want to build a 42-inch pipeline. We don't want your pipeline. We don't want your pipeline. We'll take the sunshine, the water, and wind. We're gonna put a stop sign on Dominion's pipeline. Go tell your neighbors, go tell your friends.
The first step I would take would be to try to understand the problem in order to solve it. I would learn as much about natural gas pipelines, the regulatory agencies that regulate them, the utility that is promoting the pipeline, the political environment, and I learned about the process, the approval process. And so I'd get a full understanding of what's involved.
When we first got the letter, of course, these companies, what they want to do is to make you feel isolated. They want you to be blown over, and as fast as they can, they will come and get that permission from you for the easement. That we weren't even scared. But the first thing I did was, who else knows about this? And nobody else that I know would ever agree to this. And I haven't heard a thing about this ever. Not from the Board of Supervisors, not from anyone. So first thing I did was call a few neighbors. Nobody knew. Then I got a little nervous, and then I thought, well, I'll ask the extension agent in Livingston. He didn't know. And then I called Ernie Reed, who was a neighbor who I knew was an environmental activist. I said, have you ever heard anything about this oil or a gas pipeline coming through our neighborhood? And he said, oh no, I'm working on stopping these things in California. So if there's anything you hear that's coming through here, you let me know. I said, well, that's what it sounds like. And I brought him over, showed him the letter, and he said, that's ridiculous. And the next day, he got one. So it was funny because they actually want you to think you're the only ones. And when he got one, I thought, well, there's hope because I know Ernie's going to fight against it. So I said, Ernie, what do we do? So, and I guess that is what you always have to do. You have to first determine, of course it's a pipeline, so there's a long line. You're not the only one. Somehow you're on a route. So what we wanted to do is find the route. And Dominion, it does not want you to. I mean, in our case, Dominion, whatever, these people, they do not want you to know the route. They don't want you to think that there's anybody else but you facing this, and that it's a ridiculous thing, and just give up. That's all it is. So anyway, but the more we chatted with neighbors, Martin was at the post office the next day, and he saw another neighbor behind us who was just getting a letter and had the same confused look on his face. And Martin said, oh, we know what that is. So talk to the neighbors. That's the main thing to start out.
In that regard, another thing that I think that's really huge is finding or developing a skill set with mapping. Most counties nowadays have some sort of a GIS program that shows all of the parcels in their county, that shows what the parcel numbers are, that can be a stepping off point for getting contact information for landowners. But I can't tell you how crucial that ability to navigate in that system as routes, as we identified landowners who were on the route as the route changed and we had to identify new landowners. And I know that there were people early on like Ron who had done so much, even going door to door to try and figure out where this pipeline route was, because Dominion was not being particularly transparent about it. But over time, some of that transparency got better. But it still was way far from adequate. And the ability to go to those maps that the county had and look through them to try and identify landowners, to try and see where were the changes, to try and see where were the floodplains, to try and figure that stuff out was huge.
Like Nelson County has parcel records on a GIS. If you get that information, you can then just draw a line across all of those and say, computer select all these parcels that line crosses, and then bam, you'd have it.
Organize. Every neighbor that you can find, every person who is like-minded that you can find, every person who may not care about you losing your property or losing your trees or the environment, but would care about losing their property. Because you can create a coalition of people and hold that coalition together during the fight if you really work towards doing that. But you have to organize first. It's the only way it works. You organize and you find build strategies of what you can do to fight back.
I would say you have to get the word out. You have to let everyone in the area know what's going on, and that is not an easy thing to do. You need to talk to people, you need to talk to your local politicians, your supervisors. We started with creating petitions for the Board of Supervisors saying that this is something we do not want and it will do great damage to the county.
Set up committees based on what people's interests are in the group of people that you're talking to. So maybe some people are interested in the environmental reasons to fight whatever it is they're trying to fight. Maybe there are people who are interested in just the eminent domain portion of that fight. Maybe they are interested in an environmental justice portion of the fight. Maybe this is being set up in the middle of an indigenous community or an African American community. So you can create all of these committees within your group, and they start doing research on how this particular project will affect all of these different areas that you can look at to fight back. And I don't think there's anything wrong with lots of different kinds of groups. Different groups will use different tactics. Some will be not willing to do direct action civil disobedience. Some will be. Some will are willing to go to every public hearing or meeting that there is. Some will just be willing to be in the background. So having lots of different groups fighting the same issue is okay, because they're all going to come at it from a different angle. Sometimes you'll all work together, sometimes you might not. And that's still okay, because the goal is to stop whatever it is. And as long as everyone is working towards that goal, that's really the perfect choice to have.
It was all important. And on the individual level, it was, if you think that this is a big deal and you have the time and energy to get out there and do something about it, go. Definitely do it. I mean, it's real easy as one person to think, I'm only one person, what can I do? But that is not a road you want to go down, because as one person, there's a lot you can do.
You know, I have sort of two sides to this. One is you need a little coordination, but you don't need a lot. And in some ways, the beauty of what happened in Nelson County, and really by extension Augusta and Buckingham and Highland and Bath, but very specifically in Nelson County, from my experience, was that we had a common cause. The common cause we didn't want the pipeline. Some of us didn't want the pipeline for property rights. Some of us didn't want the pipeline for environmental issues. Some of us didn't want the pipeline because we want to exit fossil fuels. Some people, there were a whole bunch of different reasons, and people had different opinions about the impact, the scale of it, all those things. But we all agreed on one thing: we didn't want the pipeline here. And we also discovered pretty quickly that people had different areas of passion and interest and skill sets. And, generally what I feel like happened, and I don't know exactly how, but people coalesced in smaller groups around those areas of interest and passion and expertise, and they just started to fight within their zone of genius.
How to raise money, how to get the public engaged, that was why we had the members, was about having members is important for several reasons. One is to get the public, feeling like more like they have a stake. It's about messaging, anyone can be part of this. It's also to raise money, but yeah, the money that you get from your members isn't really that much, but it's related to raising money, because if you do try to get a grant, you need to show that you have done all this other stuff to raise money. And a major thing is we have members that shows that we have community support. So grantors like to know that you have community support. So you want to be able to say, 500 people are members. People care enough to give us $25. That's an important thing.
We don't want your pipeline, we don't want your pipeline. We'll take the sunshine, the water and wind. We're gonna put a stop sign on the Dominion's pipeline. Go tell your neighbor.